Recording. All right, here we go. Welcome to our webinar on mission statement, mission setting, creating a mission-driven life. What we want to do is we want to start going through sequentially the Ascension protocol. All right, and I want to give you the overview of the system that we're building and that you're a part of and that we're all experiencing together by going through this. And we arrived at this wheel based on the fact that I'm putting together a system that's got all of the experiences that I've gathered over the past 25 years. And I've tried to package it in a way that makes sense and that is fun and uplifting. So if we start here with alignment really comes from a systems engineering concept of, building out a mission that is in direct. It's something that you built, something that you chose. It's a direct reflection of who you are and where you're trying to go and what you're trying to become. And if you think about a company, if you work for a company and you've got a job that you go to, a lot of these jobs, they have mission statements, they're up on the wall, and we all got to make a living. You're going to that job, that's great, they're paying you, hopefully, and but you're working to make their mission statement a reality. And so that's why we want to try to come up with a lot of good reasons to put a mission statement in for ourselves so that we can start aligning all the other things that we do behind that. Once we have everything in alignment, I call it, like, to think of it as almost like an operating system. Once we have an operating system, we filter everything through that. And there really are three areas of life that everybody has to, deal with, or, needs to improve or wants to try to get the most out of. And that's physical, financial, and social, right? So physical, that's everything with your body. That's about, your physical longevity, the social interactions we have, the connections we have with people, even places, things, spirituality, all the things that make up the relationships, the connections we have in life. And then beyond that, it's what are we doing that's going to impact people into the future? So whether it's ourselves, because we actually get to experience some amount of our legacy while we're building it. And the key is to think about, I like the concept of cradle to cradle rather than cradle to grave. Cradle to cradle would be one generation is born, and then eventually, a few decades later, another generation is born, and then another generation is born. And it doesn't mean that anybody had to die, but as these generations are entering into the family, the legacy is being created, things are being passed on. So that is the Ascension protocol, the wheel. And let's see here. I am just going to silence this really quickly because I really dislike being continually bothered. Excuse me. All right. So again, this is maybe a little more granular than we need to get into in this moment, but I wanted to just give you the overview of the alignment portion of the Ascension protocol. So this is a hierarchy from top to bottom, mission to execution. Today is all about talking about the mission, and maybe in another webinar we can get a little bit more detailed into protection and growth and why there are 4 things that are on the protection side and 4 things that are on the growth side. But just briefly from a philosophical perspective, and so that I'm not just glossing over it, protection, that is like defense, so if we're playing sports or we're playing football, your defense is what prevents the goals from being scored on you. So by having a mission, a why, core values, and a vision that are well put together, stress tested, and that you've spent a lot of time refining, you'll find that you then kind of have this bubble around you, or at least you have you can filter through what is coming at you. So if it's a matter of saying, hey, we got invited to go, we got invited to go to the lake for the weekend. Do we go or do we not go? Do we cancel the kids, baseball practice or skip a game in order to go to the lake? Well, a lot of people have a tough time negotiating those type of conflicts. But at the end of the day, if you have core values that are in alignment with who you are and in alignment with your vision and your mission, and these things align top to bottom, then you're going to be able to make the decision confidently, clear-headed, like, yes, because we want to spend time with the family and these weekends are limited, we're going to go to the lake. Or maybe, sports are a higher priority. You get it. So that being said, we want to talk about mission-driven living. And, a mission this is the foundation. And it's going to give you some ability to be more resilient because things are always going to be coming at you. You're always going to have conflicts. You're always going to have different things that you need to negotiate from a time, money, energy perspective. And so when you're getting into situations that are more challenging and more difficult, the mission becomes the backstop, or becomes kind of the low watermark that you cannot go below. You're always going to be trying to, have something to prevent you from drifting off into chaos. So, and once we have that, we're also able to grow. So setting this up is setting us up for success. Again, we're trying to be clear. Another thing is that, I've used these mission statements and I've used this alignment process throughout my life. And it goes back to engineering school when I was in Virginia Tech, and I learned a bunch of stuff about this and about how to do successful project management and how project creep occurs and how similarly lifestyle creep occurs in life. And, by really refining what it is that the outcome is supposed to be, it really simplifies things and, keeps you from wasting time and energy and keeps things from getting confusing. And so just so that we're clear here with what we're talking about in Everest Longevity with this Ascension protocol, today we're really going to deep dive on the mission. We will go into the why, core values, and vision to finish out the whole growth aspect in other series and other episodes, so to speak. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we're trying to put ourselves into a causative state where we're taking action, and the actions that we're taking are multiplying their efforts over time. And then, well, this is a little intense right here. It says life or death. The thing is that what I want to communicate to you is that this is something that is, it's important because life is short and we have a limited amount of time to pursue the things we want and spend the time with the people we care about. And we can't be two places at once. We can't do two jobs at once. There's always an opportunity cost. And at some point in time, that cost, adds up to our entire life. So how did we spend our life? How did we spend our time? It's a little intense, but it's a good segue to this next slide, which is time to wake up. Okay. This is life or death. That's what the ... is. It is a life or death struggle here. And not to make it too serious, but we have to start off with a little bit of gravitas here and kind of impressing upon the importance of this mission that we are taking on. Viktor Frankl, Holocaust survivor, basically witnessed that inside the Nazi death camps that he survived, there were people that said, this is not the end of me. This is not where I'm going to meet my end. And I am going to, excuse me, sir, I am going to survive this and come out the other side. And they had simple things like, I'm going to go and, visit the town where I grew up in, and I'm going to see that town again, or I'm going to play piano again, or something like that. And that by having that in place, and maybe that's more of a mission or a vision rather than a mission. But again, we're going to clarify all these things. But by having something that they had a purpose or a reason for being, they were able to basically survive. And so there this quote stands out for those who have a why to live, they can bear with almost any how. And so it's like, how are you going to get through this horrible situation? Well, you're going to do it one day at a time. You're going to be patient, opportunistic, um, band together with your brethren, and really make the most of it. And that's really that's a good place to start with what we're doing today. And so, look, I'm not going to go through all of these, but this is just topics of conversation. I know that when I read this book, and by the way, all these books that I put up here, I've read them. So, and if I don't actually, I either listen to them or I own them at some point in time. So when I was reading this book, this was right before I had started my first brick and mortar business in Manhattan. And it just so happened I think Tony Robbins was really pushing this book, and a lot of other people had mentioned it. When I hear a bunch of people mention a book, I always think that I don't always. I just think I shouldn't skip it. I shouldn't skip that book, because if this person I respect has read it, this person I respect has read it, maybe when I hear about it 3 times, once I've heard about a book 3 times, I really feel like that's got to go on the list. That's impacted a lot of people. So, Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, and it kind of sets the tone for doing something challenging. I started this business, and it was blood, sweat, and tears from 2009 until 2013. I don't think we really started making money, and probably almost went out of business 2 or 3 times before then, and eventually kind of squeaked it out, figured out a formula to start making money, and it became a lucrative, wonderful business up until the pandemic. Another story, though. But actually, no, that's true. That's actually pertinent to now. I mean, so what I'm doing here with this, I'm trying with Everest Longevity and the Ascension Protocol. I'm trying to codify the experiences that I've had, as well as build something brand new. So it's super fun for me, because I can say I've already been through this. I've been through the hard, unimaginable conditions. Excuse me, I'm just pulling that from this here. The unimaginable conditions of hardship, at least as far as starting a business is concerned, and just the doubt and the negativity, and the from inside and outside. You have people that are waiting for you to fail. Even if they might claim to be your friends and family, they're just kind of like, oh, it must be hard, and you have to have that vision of, I am seeing this through to the other side. My mission is going to be successful no matter what. And so that is the internal compass when everything else is lost. Moving right along. So Simon Sinek, we want to talk about being magnetized by your mission. Your mission draws people to you. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So Simon Sinek wrote, start with why. And that is our second category below mission. And they do kind of bleed into each other. And part of why we're spending the time doing this is I want to be very specific in saying, your mission has to be written in a very specific way. And that is, I am here to do this. My mission is to do this, right? And then the why is like your purpose. You could use why and purpose synonymously. And then the why would be like, well, why am I trying to help people forge systems of strength so that they can live the best life that they can, and leave a lasting legacy and a mark on their families and on society that will be remembered for generations? Like, why do I want to do that? And it's because that's who I am. That's what I want to stand for. That's how I want to be remembered. And it's what has given my life purpose. So anyway, it's not about me, but again, we're trying to cover all this so that you get the clear understanding that this mission statement is not just some, couple sentences that you put into a notebook and then don't look at it again. Like, this is going to go up on your wall. Maybe it'll be framed. Maybe you'll put it into bronze or gold at some point in time. Who knows? But it will be something that moves you from where you are to where you want to get to. So people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And the clarity of your mission inspires loyalty and action. the mission precedes communication. It defines culture. I just realized something. So to to live my most authentic self, what I want to do is I want to actually share with you my mission, and it's something that is constantly evolving. I would like to get it to the point where I can just rattle it off and it's completely memorized, but it's so new. It's so new. This is so new that it isn't memorized yet. And there were missions when I was a kid, when I was younger, when I moved to New York. My mission was simply to experience everything. That was my mission, experience everything. But now my mission is, I exist to forge systems of strength that empower others to live intentionally, lead boldly, and ascend beyond limitations, leaving a legacy of resilience, wisdom, and transformative impact. Okay, that's my mission. And then my why is I believe that clarity, structure, and courageous action can free people from chaos and allow them to fully live, lead, and love without regret. All right. So, and I have my core values and I have my vision for each area of my life. That's all here. And I print that out, and it is in a place that I can see it every day. And if there's something on it that I want to change, I'll make a note either on the paper that's right where I get dressed every morning, or I will change it on the document. And then every week or so, I reprint the document and I tape it right over top of the mission statement as it is displayed in my changing area in my closet. Let's see here. So moving on. So what we're doing is we're holding up a personal mirror to ourselves. And when we write these things, and it can be very challenging at the beginning, because if you're not living your best life or your fullest life or a purpose, mission-driven life, and somebody like myself starts saying, like, you got to write down your mission, you got to write down your mission, you kind of go, well, I don't, what is this even going to do for me? Like, my mission is to, like, provide for my family and, like, have a good time and have fun all the time, whatever. It can be very vague. And my challenge to you, or my hypothesis, is that if you are not fully satisfied with where you are, and you want and believe that there is a higher level, better place for you to arrive at, then this is one of the key components that has been proven over and over and over and over again by countless experts in the field of personal development and business development and growth. So if we skip over this step and we go to the step of, like, well, I want to get into good shape, or, I'd like to have more meaningful connections with my friends and family, or whatever, or I'd like to, have a more confidence in the way that my, future is planned out from a legacy perspective, whatever. All of that falls behind this. So we're holding up a mirror, and this is another one of those ones that's a little dark and it's a little hardcore, but that's what we're here for. Look, if you carefully consider what you want to be said at your funeral, this is like Stephen Covey's quote. If you carefully consider what you want to be said of you in the funeral experience, you will find your definition of success. Now, it's like a weird way of saying, like, the funeral experience, but I think what Covey's trying to say is, what are people going to say about you at the end when you're gone and you're not there to speak up for yourself? You don't get to say, well, what I meant to do was, and I intended to live a more full life, but all this stuff got in the way, right? So, not acceptable. We have to lay down the law now, create the laws of our land, of our kingdom. That's what this mission is. And in the short term, it may be holding up a mirror. We may not like what we see, but eventually it actually goes to both ways. The mission statement and all of the other work that we need to do, are going to do, will then actually start to reflect back to you. Because then you first have to define it. You say, look, this is how I see the world, how I believe it should be. And then what your brain and what life will do for you is basically start showing you opportunities where you don't match up. And over time, you'll start to make the decisions that start to cut out the things that don't align with your mission and your values and your vision of how things are supposed to be. So we're creating almost like an ideal picture of where we want to get to. Maybe it's a wireframe outline, but then we're going to paint it in with our life. So Stephen Covey, of his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, habit number 2, begin with the end in mind. Define your personal mission statement. And this is your constitution. It's the center of your life. Your goals will flow naturally from your mission, not the other way around. That's exactly what I've been saying. And revisiting your mission statement realigns actions with values. And it's not just, look, it's revisiting it, like reread it. You know, I exist to forge systems of strength and that empower others to live intentionally, lead boldly, and ascend beyond limitations, leaving a legacy of resilience, wisdom, and transformative impact. Sounds good to me. And what I also want to show you is how to build this. This isn't the session that we're going to do that, but I will walk you through a step-by-step process that will literally create and define all of the verbiage that needs to go in there, and it will be highly, highly personalized for yourself. So it's not going to be something you could copy somebody else's, and that can be a good place to start. Somebody who you admire, you can try to be like them, but ultimately you want it to be your voice and your DNA that's in these statements. All right, so every time we take an action, we're voting for the type of person that we wish to become. And so this is James Clear, Atomic Habits. I can't say that I'm buddies with James Clear, but I did meet him before he really blew up at an entrepreneur event. And oddly enough, he hadn't released the book Atomic Habits yet. And I told him all about my business, Atomic Total Fitness. And then he named his book Atomic Habits. So, I don't think I could take any credit for it, but I might have incepted the idea into his mind at that time. I don't know. But either way, great book. And it is atomic because it's building on these micro, small adjustments that add up to big things over time. So we're talking about behavior change here. We're talking about making small incremental improvements. If we don't have a mission statement and then we put one into place, that is a 1% improvement. If we then refine that mission statement and make it even more definitive and clear, we've made another 1% improvement. Once we now are continually checking in with it and improving it, evaluating our life from that perspective, we are starting to put a system into place. And systems beat goals because systems are aligned with your mission and sustaining growth. So we're going to repeat it over and over again. We're going to refine it. And then eventually we start to see some automatic action. And that's actually, selfishly, that's the place that I am trying to get to. A lot of times it's been fits and starts with this stuff. And I'm now at the point, just because, I moved to New York, gave up a, very lucrative, safe career in systems engineering, moved to New York to pursue my dreams, which was to continue to do martial arts, potentially do some stand-up comedy, which I did tons of stand-up comedy and I love doing it. But it's having the guts to make that jump. You need to have a very strong constitution if you're going to do something big and bold with your life. And so if you're trying to work up to that, or you're trying to make more of what you've got, the mission statement is a wonderful, wonderful tool and great place to start. It's not the be all end all, but skipping over it seems quite silly to me. So the starting point, and we're going to run out of time here for a 30-minute webinar, but I'm going to see if I can just keep charging through, maybe get this done for you in another 10 minutes here, guys. I was trying to keep it to 30 minutes, but I'm trying to cram as much content in as I can, so forgive me if this goes over a little bit. So the starting point. Definiteness of purpose is the starting point of all achievement. Napoleon Hill wrote the seminal kind of self-help book, if you will, Think and Grow Rich. He had other contemporaries at that time, but for the early 20th century, Napoleon Hill, being able to interview all of the captains of industry at that time, kind of like a precursor to Tim Ferriss, if you would, basically collecting all this information, collating it and organizing it, and then giving it back to the public in a form that basically says, these are the hallmarks of success. These are the formulas. If you were going to distill down all of this knowledge, this is what you need to be able to, these are the actions, these are the behaviors you would engage in if you wanted to be successful. And so what Hill basically says is that, you create this mission and you link it with desire, and then that's your first step towards health, wealth, etc. So if you want to achieve something and you want to do something, you need to write this down. And then a lot of the book Think and Grow Rich involves, attaching the emotion to why you're doing it. And that's more or less what I would help you with in later stages of this. But just understanding how important it is to put this into place, having it written down, repeating it over and over again. Again, that word magnetize pops up again here, your intention to the results. There's a bit of this kind of faith idea of letting go and not being attached to it having to happen, but believing that it'll happen. And then operating through that belief and then letting the universe kind of align with you. It gets a little bit out there. It starts to feel like more of a spiritual concept. But at the same time, I think probably the most interesting point but the most interesting aspect of science is where the science starts to blend over into art or spirituality or psychology. And so where science kind of starts to lose its ability to be proven, we then kind of have other things take over that are more feelings based, intuitive based, and really give you an opportunity to live a human experience. So it's not something that this is being analytical, this is being calculating, this is being thoughtful, and with as much precision as possible. And we want this to be almost on a clinical level and have it be evidence-based and have all of this stuff really work. At the same time, funny, weird things happen when you really get clear on what you want to do. And maybe it's just the way that our mind works. But when you really get clear on what it is that you want to do, all of a sudden you start finding, it's like somebody said, don't see the color blue in front of you. All of a sudden you're going to see all the blue things in front of you. Well, this is it's like saying, do whatever you can to not, in the negative, do whatever you can to not follow this mission statement that you have put a ton of energy into defining. It's like, don't do that now. It's like, you're going to find ways to do it. You're going to find the people and the things and the activities to engage in. And it's just crazy. I mean, like right now tomorrow I'm going to the New York Well Festival, where I might be able to meet somebody that I've looked at as a mentor, Peter Attia, and some other great notable people are going to be there in the wellness space. I also am enrolled in a health and wellness coaching program from Harvard Medical School. Say what you want about I'm not going to say anything about politics, but I will say that Harvard's been a reputable learning institution for hundreds of years. So, it's definitely going to be someplace that I'm going to learn some really great stuff about doing more of what I'm doing here, and will be in many ways a capstone on stuff that I've already studied. But the fact of the matter is that I set the intention, build this amazing coaching platform. I'm attracting experiences, people, and opportunities to myself. And then it's just like knocking over dominoes one after the other. And again, that's what I'm trying to give to you. And it's also kind of exciting as we go through this. I'm laying these down. This is the first one of 32 of these that I've committed to doing. So by the time this is all done, we're going to have an amazing system. It's going to be super powerful, and you're along for the ride. So I would love to hear how, this is going for you and what's actually resonating. So again, that's where this, got a little bit off track, but this faith leads to this auto-suggestion. You're basically brainwashing yourself. you're convincing yourself that you are destined and meant to achieve the things that you're setting up for yourself. So without that, you're just drifting. And drifting leads to failure. And there's things that I've tried. I've tried things that I have failed at, and I look at it like this: you're either, you know, growing or you're learning. And growing is like, abundance, everything's getting better. Or, you could say you're either, learning or you're failing, or you're growing or you're failing. Well, you're either growing or you're learning. And so if I fail at something, I at least have learned something. So then I can always put that towards growth. So growing or learning. And sometimes you can learn and grow at the same time, which is ideal. I've had tough years where all it was learning, because I tried stuff and I tried stuff and I tried stuff. And I won't take that as a failure. I will take that as a learning opportunity to grow further. And that's what puts me here in front of you now. So there we go. Path of struggle. So you make a commitment to live this life, this better life, to go after this big, bold thing that isn't easy to attain. And you're going to put you're going to put some pretty heavy duty architecture into place, words, phrases, things that are saying, this is what I stand for. This is who I am. This is what I'm going to do. This is my mission in life. And then from that point forward, you got to start rolling that boulder up the hill. And it's not about it being a grind. I would argue, there's, it's almost like in Conan, the original, like he's pushing that wheel. He's just pushing the wheel and he's pushing the wheel. And he like starts off as a kid and then they show him again and he's pushing the wheel and he's like this beast of a human. And I would argue that, the best part about the path of struggle is pushing the boulder up the hill. Now that might sound counterintuitive. You might think, oh, well, I really want to just like get the benefit of what that is, but excuse me. You want to get the benefit of what it is that you're doing and the time that you're putting in, and you want to win and you want to succeed. But at the same time, it's like pushing that wheel made Conan strong. Pushing that wheel made Conan into the physical beast that he was. And so a lot of it, and I'm able to say this as somebody that's started training martial arts in 1998 and has really never stopped physically training. There's been no interrupted period of time in there other than a couple vacations here and there where I said, I'm taking a full week off and not doing anything. But there has never been any point in time where I fell off the wagon and just wasn't training. And as a result, I'm 47 years old now, and I'm stronger than I ever thought I would be. And I keep getting stronger and stronger. And compared to most of my peers or most of the people out there, I'm kind of fit and they're not, and so I wouldn't trade that for anything, and I, just as somebody that's, maybe a captain of industry who spent their entire life getting experience, rising to the top of their field, the only way they got there was through that blood, sweat, and tears, that hard work that they did over and over and over again. And I guess all I'm suggesting is, yeah, it's great to have, excellent physical prowess. It's great to have excellent status academically or career wise, but we also have to have the full picture. And if your mission is only to make money, or your mission is only to be healthy, and we haven't incorporated all the other important aspects of life in it, we're going to fall short in some way. So, we're gonna have challenges. We're gonna have obstacles. And I guess all I'm saying is, at least with regards to this Life You Were Born to Live, super cool book. Definitely check it out. It has something to do with your birthday, and kind of it has like a bit of like a numerology aspect to it, but it's kind of a little bit more. It's not as woo-woo and out there, if I can say. I don't even know if, this thing's probably woo-woo too. If you're talking about taking your birthday, adding up the numbers, and then reading these chapters in this book, so it's no more or less woo-woo than numerology, I suppose. But the fact is that you get some cool insights, oddly enough, from this book my kind of defining goal or mission in my life is to create a system that not only liberates myself but liberates others. So here we are. And in order to get to that point, I've had to go over a lot of mountains and valleys to get to the point where I'm saying, you know what? This is it. It's time. This is the life I was born to live. So having a mission is beyond just tactical. The things we've been talking about so far have been very tactical. Or we've touched on that there is this full spectrum of things that we need to do as a human being to live a full and complete life and to feel like we've lived a full and complete life. And so, aside from it being something that we're trying to put into place so that we can get this, we can start to enact this process and get this outcome, it's bigger than that. It's bigger than who we are. Ideally, if it's well written, it puts us into a state and into a place where we're basically saying, I'm here to, I am not in a place of where I am lacking something. I am in the place of abundance and not of need. As a matter of fact, I am so in the right place that I'm able to actually give more to others. I am willing. I'm not even sacrificing anything. I am so abundant that just like the sun shining over here, you extend and radiate your purpose and your gifts outward, and you don't exist in a place of like, oh, well, it's too bad for me. Things didn't work out. The pandemic really took my legs out from underneath me with my business, and I just haven't been the same yet since, and I don't know what else to do with myself. I could play that card. I could play that role. Wouldn't amount to anything, wouldn't amount to who I am, wouldn't amount to me building a system like this. So Course in Miracles, kind of a wild book. But in that it's supposed to be the words of Jesus through some this woman Helen Schulman back in the 70s. It's not about it being religious. It really is about basically that when you get into this state of true giving and abundance, your perspective of life changes, and it's not you stop playing the victim. You stop being worried about what you do and do not have, and you just start to operate from the place of like, you know what? There's a lot of suffering in the world. I'm going to do everything I can to try to reduce and eliminate that. And if I can do that, I can extend this care and concern and love. Not only do I get better and am I saved and healed in many ways, I'm capable of doing the same thing for others, because if I'm broken and can't get my act together, well, then I have this view like this as opposed to opening out like this. So we're going from philosophy to execution here, right? So your mission is clear. When your mission is clear, your next actions become obvious. This is from Getting Things Done by David Allen. Really cool book. It's just one of those things. It's like, we're bombarded by so many distractions today, so many things to prevent us from getting anything done. And when you invest time in what I would consider deep work, and this being deep work where you're taking the time for yourself, taking the time to think about what it is that you really want to achieve in life, you then are setting yourself up for a completely different trajectory. It's like, missing the iceberg, if you're right on top of the iceberg, you can't turn. The Titanic doesn't miss the iceberg because they see it too late. But if you turned 1 degree, earlier, like 2 hours earlier, they would have missed it, right? So, but there was no clear path, right? They're driving at night. So your mission is like highlights, is like laser beams into the future, and it just puts you on guardrails. So, again, we without a mission, productivity becomes meaningless busyness. And so we're just kind of wrapping things up here. And I'm finishing with this slide from Lao Tzu, and that is that we're going to create alignment, and then it's going to give us an opportunity to lead. And that doesn't mean we have to lead in every aspect of our life, but we're going to lead in the times and places where it's necessary and where we are called to. And that could be at home with our family. That could be or more oftentimes at work. It could be when we're out and about, maybe even just simply smiling, holding the door for people, whatever it is, being a good citizen while we're out there. But ultimately, and I put a tree down here because if you think about the movie Kung Fu Panda, there's some sort of little story they're talking about, like you take the pit of a peach, right, and you plant that in the ground, and no matter how hard you try, you are not going to be able to make that peach blossom into an apple tree, right? The peach in its nature is going to be a peach tree and bear fruit of peaches. So I think a lot of times we don't know who we are entirely, and we don't know what we were put here necessarily to do. And so if we can let go of, there's a lot of times I'm like, well, I have to be, I mentioned I did a bunch of stand-up comedy. I've done tons of stand-up comedy. I love it. Stand-up comedy is one of my favorite things. And I will continue to do it. However, it's one of those things that's realistically, it's a little bit hard to have a family. And, it can be very hard on a family, especially if you don't make any money doing it, and you don't, unless, it's very rare. But regardless, to put your family through, I basically saw it as, you know what? I had my time doing this thing. I'm willing to let go of, I was able to scratch that itch, able to do a lot of stand up and performing and enjoy that. But I also was able to say, you know what? I'm going to let that, it ran its course for now, and I'm going to let it go. And I'm going to try other things and focus on other things. And I did that in 2009 when I built my fitness business. And then, as a matter of fact, I actually built my fitness business so well that I had an abundance of time and abundance of money. And I was able to go back and do more stand-up comedy. And I did a really amazing standing room only, sold out show at the People's Improv Theater, part of the SoloCom Comedy Festival in 2019. And I did the history of fitness from the beginning of time. And if that's something you want to see, I'm sure you can find it by searching my name and SoloCom, and it'll come up. And that's the reality is that, I let go of the need to have to do it. And then I actually became, like pushing that wheel. I didn't become Conan or nearly, or as buff as Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I pushed the wheel. I pushed the stone up the hill. I built a business. And then as I was, cresting that mountaintop, I had the time and the energy to be able to go and, go have fun and do more stand-up comedy. So this is, it's like, this is true power, right? True power flows from non-forceful alignment with one's path, the mission. So knowing others is intelligence, knowing yourself is true wisdom. Mission aligns action with the natural flow. Wu Wei is, I think, it's like is the natural flow. It's also being empty. It's like the emptiness of the universe, I believe, and it's like action with inaction. A great leader leads by staying connected to the deeper way, right? This is the path, and silence, reflection, simplicity, sharpen awareness of the mission. So, again, it's just letting things go, being chill, being present. What is it that you truly want? Listening to yourself, listening to your desires. If any of this was interesting to you or sparked some thoughts about taking action on this, or you have put together a mission statement, I would love to hear from you. I would love to chat with you. Not trying to, sell you anything. Would just ultimately like to have the opportunity to be able to, hear more about what you're trying to do. See if there's some sort of synergy. If there's a way that I can help you out, that would make my day. And I hope this was informative and helpful to you. And we'll catch you on the next one.